Hello everyone, it is Brian of Asante Capital Management, and today I am in beautiful Stony Creek, Ontario, just outside of Hamilton, at the Donald V. Brown Funeral Home. And to my right, Brian Segall, Funeral Director. And today I wanted to have a conversation with Brian. Most of the time that we come to funeral homes, and it's in a really tough time, a stressful time. And I wanted to kind of peel back a couple of layers of the onion here and just talk about what takes place here, what services you guys offer, thoughts around pre-planning, like all those sorts of things. So here we are, we're in a large house-like building with many different rooms. But could you tell me, Brian, what you guys do here? Like, what do you do at the funeral home?
Well, I guess what I would say we do is we're here to help families when someone passes away. So we do everything that needs to happen from the time someone dies to the point where they're in their final resting place, be that burial, cremation, or something else. So when someone passes away, the family gives us a call. We arrange to have the deceased person brought to the funeral home. We bring the family into the funeral home as well. And sit down, go over all the arrangements that they need to make and sort of all the government documents that they need to do and get everything in line for any funeral services they want to have.
So are you getting phone calls the day after somebody passes, the middle of the night? Like how?
Yeah,
like,
sometimes.
Sometimes
right after someone passes. Our phones are answered 24/7. Like there's always a director on call. So if someone dies at home in the middle of the night, they need help right away. They give us a call then, and someone is available to start things right then.
Like 3 o'clock in the morning?
3 o'clock in the morning, or at lunchtime, during dinner, whenever it happens.
Got it. And so people come in here, probably 1, 2, 3, or 4 different people. I mean,
sometimes more.
Sometimes more. Okay.
Yeah.
So the decision makers come in.
Yes.
And you're sitting down with them, and what are the sorts of things that you're talking about, and how long does that conversation last? I'm curious.
Yeah, it could take anywhere from 20 minutes if it's very simple and people know what they want, to a couple of hours, sometimes even more. That's a little more rare, but usually start by sort of getting a general idea of what kind of services people want, if it's to be burial or cremation, and kind of go from there. If someone wants a funeral service versus if they just want, say, a cremation to take place, we call it a direct cremation, and they take the cremated remains and do their own thing, to a sort of full traditional funeral service at a church and burial and a procession and the whole thing. So it's just going over those details with them, walking them through what decisions need to be made, and then helping them make them if they need that kind of help.
Yeah, I mean, it's a truly sensitive period of time, and you're making decisions that need to be made quickly.
It's like the worst time to have to make a decision, and you have to make 123 of them all at once.
For sure. And do a lot of folks, do they have a sense of what people wanted? I mean, that's what we all say, you know, what did Grandpa want? You know, what did Mom want? But do they know? Do people voice this? Do they have a sense? Sometimes?
Yeah. I'd say it's hard to say, maybe 50-50.
Okay.
There are certainly people who have thought about it, maybe even prearranged something for themselves, at least spoken to their family about it. But just as often, there are people who come in and they're like, I have no idea what to do here, or what we want to do.
And one thing that I've thought about, getting more into the nitty-gritty here on the practical side, I mean, this is a business. There are costs associated with this.
Yes.
And I see it on the financial side of things where, you know, it does take time to pay out money. And if you present a death certificate to a financial institutions, many times, you know, the doors are closed for getting access to funds until proper documentation are there. Like, when do you look for payments? Like, how do ensure you get payment if things do get locked down?
So banks are supposed to, even if an account is frozen because the account holder passed away, if you present a bank with an invoice from a funeral home and a proof of death certificate, they're supposed to release the funds to pay for the funeral.
Oh, so the bank writes the funeral home a
bank
check,
draft out
a bank
of that
draft.
account, yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to the individual, it's going kind of directly to you guys.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So that can help with that sort of thing.
Okay.
Of course, like insurance takes time to pay out to families, and like these things do take time. We typically would require some sort of deposit at the time of arrangement,
okay,
depending. And like here we have a discount if you pay within the first 30 days. So we hope that sort of encourages people to pay for things in a timely fashion. But we do work with families to, like you say, it's a tough time.
Yeah.
So we do our best to work with the families so that we get paid, but in a way that is okay for them.
And how quickly do all these things happen? I mean, if you get a call on a Wednesday, is it typically for something that weekend, or?
There's a big range.
Is there?
But like most of the time, I'd say within a week is pretty common, especially if there's to be like a body present for a service.
Of course.
If cremation happens first, it gives us more time to work with. So sometimes you'll see people having a service with an urn maybe a month or two after the death has taken place.
Interesting. Okay. And I'm just something happens. I mean, you've been at the hospital or whatever it may be. You may not be aware that this is what you're going to be doing for this week of May or June. How do people arrive here? I mean, how do they decide?
Like as opposed to?
Just any funeral home. I mean, it's like I think about, and I know it's not the same thing, but a pipe bursts in your house, and you're just on the websites like scouring for the first available plumber who can come and fix it. Like,
I guess it's.
Do they have relationships with you? Is it because they went to a service here before? Like,
definitely sometimes.
Okay.
And we'll see sort of repeat customers from within a certain community, the same families who have been here for someone else.
Okay.
Or maybe they've come here with other people in their family, and so they know to come back. I think sometimes it is just a case of doing a Google search and trying to pick out a business if you haven't had to go through this before. Like that's how I would start to look into something I didn't know anything about, right? You do a Google search, see what the reviews are, and kind of pick a place. But
people, I guess, are generally geographically close to here. Is that?
I would definitely, yeah, okay. Because if you live in a location and you have roots in that part of town,
yep,
odds are your family and friends are probably close to that area as well. So then it becomes sort of a convenient location for everyone who knew you to gather. And then if you are going to a cemetery for a burial, mm-hmm, then sometimes you want to be in proximity to that as well.
Okay.
Not to say we don't see people from far afield coming or have to go a great distance to the cemetery from here. Sometimes we do. But the vast majority is people in the area. A lot of people who know of us from previous funerals. Yeah.
I mean, how long has this enterprise, this funeral home, been around for?
A long time. Established 1955.
Okay.
Your math is probably better than mine. You can tell me how long that's been.
That's quite a long time. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's 70 years, just shy of 70
Thank
years. So that's a couple generations.
Yes, in fact. So this home was founded by Donald Brown, 1955. His son Craig entered the business in the 70s.
Oh.
He's still one of the owners here, but now his daughter Julie has kind of taken charge of the home sort of day to day, and she's one of the owners as well. So it's in the third generation of the Brown family.
So Brian, the first thing I thought, I mean, when you told me what you did for a living, the first question I had was, like, how do you end up here? Like, how do you end up as a funeral director? You know, it's not basketball player, it's not like astronaut, it's like, it takes a person with a certain temperament, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And how to connect the dots that, you know, who I am as a person and my capabilities matches like this role. So bring me a little bit along your journey.
Okay.
If you could.
Well, I don't know if my journey is a typical one.
Okay.
I didn't think of being a funeral director when I was a kid or anything like that. I was a paramedic for a few years, maybe like 15 years ago.
Okay.
So I had a certain amount of experience with death and dying, kind of on the other side of things. And then I kind of took a detour and went to art school for a bit and didn't really know where I was going to go. And then it was just my wife one day kind of suggested, have you thought about maybe a funeral home? And it kind of clicked to me that it's like, oh, I think I'd be pretty good at that. And then it was a pretty smooth process from there. Within a couple of weeks, I was working at a funeral home. And a couple of weeks after that, I was enrolled in school to become a funeral director. So
there is programs for you to learn about
yes,
this industry and how to do this role. And
in Ontario, there's two schools that offer funeral director programs. One is Humber College in Toronto. The other is College Boreal in Sudbury, and they're the only two that have funeral director programs. So everyone who becomes a funeral director goes through one of those.
And is there an abundance of funeral directors, or is it like there's a shortage like everything else in the economy?
Yeah, like everything else. It seems like there's not enough funeral directors, and as the baby boomer portion of the population is starting to reach end stages,
yes.
We're probably going to see an increase in the death rate in the years to come. So it's just one of the challenges that I think the profession is looking at these days.
Switching gears here a little bit, again, when this can be such a tough time to make all these decisions, like there is an option that we hear about which helps absolve the survivors of these decisions, and that's pre-planning. Mm-hmm. So, you know, making these decisions on your own behalf, paying for them in advance. Some people think that they're a little bit of a trick or something like that. Tell me about them. Like, tell me about the advantages around putting something in place while you're alive.
Well, you have the control and the say over what you want to have happen for you is one advantage. It also takes the burden off of your loved ones to have to make those decisions at a difficult time. So at the very least, it allows you to start having that conversation with your family. The way it works is if you actually prepay for a funeral at today's costs, it's all very like highly regulated by the government. So every funeral home, it's kind of the same thing. You pay at today's costs, and then over the years, our costs increase like everything, but your family doesn't have to pay any more at the time of death. So your money is held in trust or possibly in an insurance product, but the money you pay is held.
It's segregated.
It's segregated. It's still your money. It's in your name. We don't have access to it until the death occurs. And at that point, the funds are released to us to pay for the funeral. A lot of the time, our costs for the funeral are actually more than the trust has grown. So we end up taking a loss on a lot of pre-planned funerals. So maybe not so good for us, but good for the people who pre-planned them, for sure.
And is there some sort of commonality to the personalities, or just are people usually over the age of 60? Are these planned? Okay, like everything. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to segment it anymore. It seems like it's all different sorts of people. Some people maybe make arrangements for their parents once they are maybe put into a nursing home and they realize that this might happen in the next few years. Mm-hmm. Some people maybe do something, put something in place for themselves when they're younger, so that they don't have to worry about it anymore and just take care of it for their family. some people don't think about this sort of thing until they absolutely have to.
Yeah. But benefit-wise, you've got control. You're not leaving a burden or a responsibility, I should say, to others. And the costs are all taken care of, like at today's dollars.
That's right.
So good or bad, we're probably not going into deflation. So like this is just how it is. How long does the process take? So for instance, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just, is it an afternoon? I pop in and I make some decisions and
pretty much.
And I'm kind of done?
Yeah. It takes a little less time than it would take to actually plan a funeral.
Okay.
Because you don't have to worry about dates or times or anything like that. It's just what type of funeral do you want? Maybe taking a look at the caskets that are available and choosing those sort of options and going through that. And then writing up a couple of papers, taking a bit of information that we hold on file. It's a pretty painless process, I think, for most people. It's just a matter of doing it.
So more people should do this.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And if for people who can't, maybe don't have the funds now even to pay for it, but they still want to have some of that taken care of, they can come in and pre-arrange something without putting money down.
Really?
And we'll take the information and we'll keep it on file. So it doesn't guarantee any costs at today's prices or anything like that, but it at least means that we have on file what their wishes were.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because maybe they do have that money in a small insurance plan, kind of ready to go, but it's not available today.
Yeah.
So you plan it, and it's kind of turnkey for everybody else.
Now, I guess I think that I should mention is like once a death occurs, the executor of that person's estate has all authority for funeral planning. So if you don't have a will, it's your next of kin. If you do have a will, it's the person you've appointed as your executor. So like a pre-arrangement isn't like legally binding to the executor as to what your wishes are. So in some ways that's a good thing. In some ways it could be a bad thing. But it means that your family at the time still has the choice whether they want to go through with the funeral as you arranged it, or if they want to make changes.
Even if you paid for it.
Even if you paid for it. So
they could overrule.
They could overrule. They could. Any services that were prepaid for that they don't use, they get that money returned to them.
Okay.
So you have the right to cancel all the services and get a full refund of the money that was paid and the interest that was earned on it. I don't know why you would want to, but some people can do that. Or if you want to maybe upgrade things and do something a little more than your parents who parents didn't want to be too much of a bother, but maybe you want to do something a bit more.
Okay. So I do think it's, we think of the estate planning process about, getting like your wills in order, getting your powers of attorney in order, but, maybe this should be the third piece.
I think so, yeah.
Like just check mark, and there's still one more check mark for you to do whatever you want to do.
That's right.
And it's probably just a heck of a lot easier mentally when you're a little bit younger. Like just get it done, walk in with your spouse, and put everything together. Brian, thank you so much for the time this afternoon. I appreciate you carving out the time. It's not every day that we get a window into this profession, into what you do, and how you help families every single day. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.